Hello and greetings to another episode of the Physical AI powered by Phygital. And we talk about AI, but from a different perspective. It's actually AI meeting the real world. And I have the pleasure with brilliant minds, scientists, founders, that we explore how machine and human behavior converge into space. And today I have the great pleasure to chat with a dear peer of mine, Lamberto. How are you doing, Lamberto?
That's great. Yeah, it's good.
Phenomenal,
Hope everything
phenomenal.
is going well also there.
Awesome, outstanding. We have a best period of time to learn and break and make things in the market, right? Lamberto, where are you tuning in from?
I'm from Padova, Italy. That is a mid-sized city, a small city close to Venice. So nice place.
Beautiful, beautiful. And for all of those, obviously, indication to go to visit Lamberto in Padua. For those who don't know Lamberto Ballan, allow me here, Lamberto, to introduce you to our audience. Lamberto is assistant professor in computer science of the University of Padua, leading research in computer vision and multimodal AI. With 200 plus publication, 400K, 1400K citations across CVPR, ICCB, ECCV, Neuro-IPS, shaping modern visual understanding. Lamberto is an expert in 3D scene understanding, object-scene relationship, visual grounding, and vision language modeling. Former researcher at Stanford with FFLE, contributing to foundational work in large-scale visual knowledge and contextual perception. Advanced AI system that fuses geometry, semantics, and language, enabling machines to interpret and reason about complex physical environment. What a pleasure, Lamberto, to have you part of our Physical AI episode. You ready to kick off things and to share some knowledge bombs with our audience?
Yeah, let's go. And thanks for having me.
The pleasure is all mine. So you're in your activities, you're double clicking on complexity and bottlenecks on current systems to be specifically complex tasks in embodied computer vision problems such as robot or visual navigation. Do you mind expanding on what's your thoughts, your opinion, your learnings, right, on what are these major bottlenecks of most current system, Lamberto?
All right. Yeah, thanks for the question. Okay. So let me say that I'm going to talk about those topics from the perspective of, researcher working on, as you say, on computer vision, multimodal learning. And the recent years in my group, we are focusing a lot on embodied computer vision. And one of the major tasks is in this area is definitely visual navigation. There are obviously a lot of applications for that. You are doing great stuff in physical systems, so in merging the real world with with AI in general. And from my point of view, this is definitely a great space to work on. There are plenty of great models, great results recently, but especially for visual navigation problems. And here I'm referring, first of all, to models that have been trained in simulation, where there are plenty of tools like Habitat, if you're familiar with these kind of things, or even AI Tutor that are used by many groups around the world. Those are great. So those systems, those frameworks allows us to train large models in this context. So I think this is one of the things that I find super exciting. So this to say that we have a lot of things nowadays, a lot of opportunities, but most of the models in this area have been trained for in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years, mostly using deep reinforcement learning that with models such as PPO or similar approaches that usually requires tons of data to train on. And this is to say that obviously this is a super challenging from many point of views, starting from the computational issues, from the fact that you need a lot of data to train those systems, and so it's very hard to scale those systems in even slightly different problems than the one that you used as a, let's say, as a starting scenario. So this to say that this is great. We try to design models for slightly different tasks, starting from very basic navigation problems such as point-go navigation, which the robot should learn to navigate autonomously towards an end goal, endpoint. Going fast forward toward more complex tasks in which there is also the needs, let's say, to better understand the world, so the scenario, in which we eventually have a lot of semantics. But then if you, let's say that you train your model for point goal navigation, then you want to tackle a slightly different task, such as object goal navigation, in which the robot should go in an unknown environment towards an instance of an object, such as a chair. Well, in this context, usually you have to train everything from scratch again, even though maybe the robot or the agent has already acquired some knowledge about that environment. And so obviously this is a bottleneck from the computational point of view, but it's also probably not the best thing to do, right? Because there is a lot of knowledge that can be transferred in this, let's say, slightly more challenging and different scenario. So this to say that obviously there are many people that are working in this area. There are a lot of novel ideas, but I think that what in my group and in other groups people are doing recently is to try to exploit a lot of the, let's say, results that have been obtained in multimodal learning, in LLMs, vision language models, in order to try to, let's say, scale down a little bit these, those challenges, trying to, let's say, take advantage of the compositional nature of those problems. And so one option could be, for example, to use LLMs or similar foundational models to learn from few in-context examples. So basically, you can try to provide a few examples in which you try to get some knowledge about how to combine, let's say, in a modular way, solutions that have been designed and trained for simpler models, simpler tasks, in a way that this can be combined with some abstract kind of language. And one option could be really to learn to write codes, so like programs, assembling that kind of simple, relatively simple modules. This is something that has been done in different contexts. So there are works such as VisProg that was in, let's say, in more standard computer vision tasks, visual question, such as visual question answering or similar things, have been used successfully for in a similar, let's say, fashion for many different tasks, combining mostly language and vision. So what we did recently with one work that we presented at CVPR that is called Tango, that stands for Training Free. I don't remember actually the acronym, but basically the idea is to combine in a training-free or sort of few-shot learning kind of setting those primitives, so those modules that have been trained for simpler tasks, in order to tackle open world tasks, where the open world here stands for tasks, high-level tasks, in which you can combine with very few training samples the knowledge that has been acquired directly by the robot navigating the environment with some knowledge that has been already obtained with, by other people training models such as object detectors that can be combined in that specific setting. And then eventually you can try to learn how to combine them in order to, for example, tackle the object goal navigation task that I was referring to as the combination of point goal towards a point in space in 3D in which you can detect that specific object, like a chair or whatever, but without requiring the model to learn again and again to solve the same task in a fully data-driven fashion. And yeah, so that's, let's say, one possible solution. And in this paper that I was referring to, we show that we can get results that are maybe not as good as the one that you can obtain with a model that's been trained from scratch for that specific task, but we show several results that tasks that can show that you can obtain comparable results with almost no additional training.
Okay, no, that makes totally sense. So shifting from LLMs to large world models, data is a huge bottleneck for each and everyone. Gathering data that is focused on specific jobs to be done has an increased level of effort, complexity. In order to train the model, you have been learning and have some research in which you're combining the visual models with existing other models, right? So, and therefore gathering existing expertise also and data from a traditional large language model, that while they don't understand the geometrics or the contextuality and the semantics of the world model, but bring enough knowledge to the actual job to be done, so that you can complete the activity between the robot in combination with the large language model, right? That's very intriguing.
Right. Yeah, that's the idea basically. Yeah.
Oh, phenomenal. But that is exactly what we, by the way, also have been learning at Phygital, the mix of both the visual model plus the large language model lead you to actually results that are very tangible, so that that doesn't require to have a huge amount of data sets on the visual part. Yeah, thanks for the sharing this, Lamberto. Very compelled about that. And did you also have some use cases that go beyond the research paper in terms of prototype, or how far did you take this most recently?
Yeah, that's a good question also. Yeah. Okay, one thing that we started to do recently is to try to let's say attempt the transition from from the synthetic, so the simulation, to the real world. There are actually several recent works in a slightly different context that in which this has been tackled and successfully by several people from UC Berkeley and Meta, and so there are many people that are really targeting this sim to real gap problem. We are trying to do something similar. What we have been doing is mostly again related to the indoor scenario. So in which so one let's say end goal could be to have a robot like Roomba or similar systems at home that can tackle more complex tasks. So like and eventually having a real interaction with the environment. So probably another bottleneck that you are starting to really tackle really recently is also the interaction process. So the fact that those environments are mostly static, while there are also a lot of tasks in which you try to, for example, like pick and place, in which you try to do something very similar to what I was describing previously, but in which you add an additional complexity that is the one given by the fact that you can move objects, right? You can change the environment. And this
Which brings
obviously
actually
has a lot of potential application in the real world.
Yeah, no, static environment is another scenario which is, I mean, we have been training embodied system based on static environment and scenarios, right? But in the real world, right, things are much more fluid, right? And things are need to consider that we have different species, right? We have animals, right? Pets, humans, right? And other objects, right? So what's your take actually on that? What have you learned, and what can you share with us on how to circumvent these situations, Lamberto?
Yeah, one major thing in this scenario is is the human. One important subject here is the human, right? So especially in indoor environments, so in the setting that I was describing previously, even if you can have a very good large-scale simulator with a lot of different rooms, different settings, and so on, usually there are people there, right? Maybe it's not super crowded, but there are few people interacting and changing everything, the environment, moving in that setting. Maybe you have pets. And so the tasks that I was describing previously, exactly the same tasks, are another order of magnitude more complex if you add also that kind of complexity. So the first thing that you can try to do, and this is something that also in my group we did in the last couple of years, is to try to also add that level of complexity. So basically having also humans that are moving in that environment. And so the same problem that I was describing previously, like object call navigation in that context, will be, okay, find please find an instance of a pillow or a chair or whatever. So the robot should learn to navigate the environment in order to find, an instance of that object, but also avoiding collisions with humans that are moving in the same environment. And here there are also obviously many people that are working in this area. Is something that in human-robot interaction has been studied for decades. But again, in our context, we are trying to do this to add that additional complexity in the same frameworks that I was describing previously. So we had a couple of works in this, let's say in this area. Like firstly, we work on a paper that we presented a couple of years ago at ICCV, in which we introduced some, starting from a work that had been presented by others, that was back in the days state of the art for a couple of tasks that relate to what I was describing. So we try to add that complexity and also a framework to evaluate how good or not so good are the model when you have people in that setting. And the very basic idea that we introduced is to have to design some tasks, additional tasks that have an impact on the loss function that is basically influencing the policy, the navigation policy that at the end the model is learning, by avoiding potential collisions with people or other moving targets, and using very simple ideas. Like, for example, the first idea that we came up with is a simple risk value or risk function that tried like a bubble around the people, in which the agent is learning to avoid a step that will put in a new state, in a new situation in which is potentially closer to collisions with moving targets. Obviously, there are some. This is the very high-level idea. Then you can have slightly more advanced way to do it, like taking into account the local topology. So, like, taking into account also not just the proximity, but also where the people are coming from. And here the attempt is to learn to move in the space accordingly to what the other people are doing, and to the relation between the space, the human or other moving target, and the robot. And again, this is done in a fully data-driven fashion. And we demonstrated that this can, we can learn policies, navigation policies that are more effective in this context. And this is one thing, the first thing. Then, let's say immediately after that work, Meta introduced the new version of Habitat, that is one of the platforms that I was referring to previously, that is specifically designed for these social navigation tasks. That from that point of view is a step forward with respect to the old Habitat, and it's also a better simulation environment. So you can really design the space and interaction between humans and space in a more realistic way. But this is completely done in a CGI environment. So this is less realistic and with respect to Habitat 2, for example. And so the gap, so what you learn in that setting will eventually be more challenging to be adapted to the real world. So there are pros and cons in this area. But again, I think this is to me, is a very exciting scenario. Because there is this extra complexity that we were referring to previously, and it's always also closer to the real world, to the real problems that those systems, those embodied systems, should face in a realistic scenario for real tasks.
Yeah, embodied AI to serve human being. We have everyone can here have the linear understanding that machines and robots, right, autonomous driving, they serve the human being to complete the job in a safe manner, right, in time, and therefore supporting the humans. But then you say, okay, how does this how does this impact and benefit when the human is truly within the same, use the same word, habitat, right, or the same environment, right? So how does it relate human to machine to human, right? You gave the example and that you were working on actually from a safety perspective, right, reducing possible risks, right? did you had already first experiments when it comes actually to direct interactions? Right.
Yeah, okay. That's a okay. That's a great question. So that's an open question, obviously, and yeah, what I was describing is the simplest scenario. I mean, it's the simplest interaction that you might have with with humans or with even animals. So what is probably more interesting, and this is one direction that we are pursuing really starting from, I don't know, like 6 months ago, is to try to, in collaboration with another group here in Italy that is focusing, actually it was a guy with a guy that was previously at MIT working on human behavior understanding. So with them, we are trying to exploit some models like theory of mind, basically, that has been used a lot in social sciences in different contexts. And so the idea is to try to use that kind of models of modeling in our system. So trying to, for example, use or exploit non-verbal behaviors or the gaze of humans in order to try to predict what will be a more realistic interaction with humans in that environment. Obviously, it's super challenging because, I mean, it's an open problem. It's hard to simulate again, and there is also, because you need also, if you do this in simulation, you need to have a simulator that is realistic, obviously, and this is a problem itself. Or on the other hand, if you want to directly learn this from the real world, I mean, it's a nightmare because you have to design, those, to really collect a lot of data in a very specific setting, and so it's not easy. But so this is a novel thing. So let's see how it goes. Maybe, I mean, in 1 year, maybe we can chat again about this if you want.
This is the compelling and intriguing part, right? I mean, we are now moving beyond just language model into the visual model and understanding. Obviously, I mean, safety has always in innovation been something that is adopted forth, right? So autonomous vehicle, they need to drive safe, right? And mundane and repetitive jobs, they need to be safe and they need to be done well, right? But now that we're creating through embodied AI this new species, right? All these robotics, right? And in general, not just the humanoids, right? But the general robots. The question is, well, how is the species human, right, interacting with this new species that in so many categories right now is already superior, right? And what is then the relationship that we build? Yeah, one relation is this new species is serving humans, right? But if we look 5 years down the road, right? What will be the relation there, right? With this new species versus human beings, right? How are we socializing with them, around them, right? And yeah, who is serving whom? That's a good question, actually. But yeah, let's not respond that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Yeah, because what I was describing, and to us, is that obviously the first step is to try somehow to mimic what is our understanding of for example, of the human way to interact with other humans, right? And this is something that, so eventually we can try to have a model, a system that is mimicking, is good enough in mimicking that kind of behavior. But then if you start to have a mixed setting in which you have robots, humans that cooperate in the same environment, actually also humans likely are going to be affected and will behave in a different way interacting with the robot. And so this is something that, it should be, first of all, observed and this is something that is, so it's not anymore just mimicking human-human interaction, but is human-human, human-robot, robot-human.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's it's a mixed scenario.
Yeah, again, interesting and phenomenal times to be, academics, entrepreneur, investors during this time. Actually, let me double click on that, right? So we are going from the past years of LLMs being trained on a very general mode right now into the more understanding actions, visual modes, right, of how our machine in general reason about the environments, understanding the environments, and therefore create use cases to complete safely jobs, right? So what's your take on opportunities when it comes around what these visual language models and embodied AIs are actually creating, Lamberto?
Yeah, I think here for sure there are plenty of opportunities for everyone, I guess. Yeah, I think that also in what I was describing briefly previously, mostly what we are doing is to use for those tasks, very complex tasks, to try to exploit the powerful capabilities of LLMs or multimodal vision language models and so on. Maybe trying to use those models or to adapt those models in a more interactive scenario. So basically, if spatial AI, that is more or less what we were describing, if we describe spatial AI as this combination between perception, learning, and action, well, maybe now we have a lot of tools in which we started with perception plus something, now perception, learning together, maybe in a multimodal setting, and then we continuously adapt this with some kind of action in the real world. But action is still maybe not a citizen like the others in this scenario. There are several groups that are working a lot hard on this kind of thing. But I think it's still, how you can learn having action in this loop as really part of the game. It's probably something is still novel. It's still new. It's something that is not there, I would say. Maybe there are some results, good results in very specific domain, very specific scenario, maybe for manipulation, partially. We start to see this, so like foundation models that have been trained having that a bit of 3D understanding for those kind of tasks. But again, this is something that is still, I think it's still open, really still open, and would have a great potential for all the problems that we were describing previously. So I think this is really something that, I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years, but for sure, I think this is something that I'm happy to work in this area, and I would like to see what's going to happen in the short term.
Lamberto, to wrap up things for our audience, what's your take, your vision? What do you foresee? Take us 60 months, 5 years down the road. I know it's a lot, right? But paint this picture for us. What is that you see that we cannot imagine right now?
Yeah, that's a hard okay, that's a hard question.
Feel free
no. I think it's hard to say because, it's very hard to say, but for sure, one thing that it's I think it's probably that will be probably true is that what if we extend what we were describing now, trying to do, let's say, slightly better all the different things that we described, this is something that for sure is going to happen in the very short term, right? But in 5 years, so if I look back at 5 years ago, to me, what we have today probably will be closer to science fiction than real science. So I don't know, maybe it will slow down a little bit, maybe not. Apparently, this is not happening yet. So I think that is going to be, I think it's going to be exciting to see what's going to happen. And I think this intersection between different modalities interacting together in the real world is definitely what's going to change drastically what we have right now.
Lamberto, on which side are you on? Are we living a simulation, yes or no?
No, I think it's no. I don't think so. No, no, I don't
All right.
think so. Yeah.
All right.
I think simulation
Lamberto,
would be great, but I don't think so. Yeah.
Lamberto, thank you so much for your time. How can people know more about what you're doing? How can they get in contact with you? Do you have
Yeah, I
a
think yeah, reach out to me with I mean, you can find easily what you are doing on our webpage, and so I'm more than happy to chat with people interested in this area. And thanks again for having me and for the opportunity to interact with you in this
The
podcast.
pleasure was all mine, Lamberto. Thank you. And guys, follow Lamberto Ballan. Thank you so much, Lamberto. And I'll see you in this simulation, or maybe not. All right. Okay. Bye.
All right.